Before I let this go, one of the points, and John brought it up with SPA being one of the gold sponsors, how ready is distribution in terms of using data? My experience with a lot of the suppliers in this room is they've spent a lot of time on data and metrics and trying to really understand, like George said, what's the market price? I mean, forget the negotiation, right? But what market price is a willing buyer and willing seller? How ready is your sense as a group about distribution being ready to kind of let data drive it instead of stories in terms of where George is going? I mean, is the industry ready for it, or are you way out there in the forefront?
I'm serving on the committee for the data project that Tom mentioned.
Oh, are you? Okay.
And there are certainly distributors who understand the importance of data, and I tell you, we go to the data first. If you haven't done your homework, then we'll send you. I don't want to hear about it until you've done your homework.
Okay.
We're using data in a lot of different ways to help us figure out where we're profitable, where we're not, and how to drive behavior to help improve our services in areas where we can be profitable.
I'm going to see if I can get Bill to say something now. I'm going to phrase my question differently. And this is for you too, Bob. But I've been involved with you guys for a quarter century. How have these groups, if you take the IMARK and the AD, how has it changed industry practices with respect to this? I mean, the whole thing, I mean, the sense I've gotten is that it's more rational now, or more of a level playing field. I mean,
yeah, well, certainly on the back end programs when you're talking about rebates and that, as opposed to the price or the invoice level. And yeah, I mean, I think going back to when the original parts of IMARK, the SIDs and MADs around, they were revolutionary. And AD at the time, back in '81, that was early days, and the disparity on the back end programs was very significant, and ultimately not in the industry's best interests. So having a healthy independent channel is important, and it's made a big difference. And I think today those programs are much similar, if not near parity. And for our independents and for IMARKs, it really provides them with the financial resources that they need in order to continue to invest in their business. It's really far more important than a lower price. If you offer a distributor, X% off the invoice or X% in the back end, well, sure, the people in the sales organization want it on the price, but those who really care about the future of that business and are invested in its long-term success want it on the back end so that they can invest in the business and get new equipment and put together a e-commerce department and launch the different initiatives that are necessary in order to compete in the future. So I think both groups are doing a fine job in that regard and an important job.
It wouldn't be done if they didn't exist. I mean, anything to add on that, Bob?
Not much. I would just echo what Bill said. I think it's been very good that the groups have evolved as they have, and the only thing I would add is the independent is so much more educated today than they were because of AD and IMARK and the networks. And I've heard distributors at AD and IMARK say that, although the incentives are very important to them, say that the networking is some of the best things we do.
That's right, where Dan was going about the best practices.
We learn so much. We learn, hey, this guy's, this is how they're dealing with not talking about price, but talking about how they manage it. And those are big things. So I agree with Bill and just add that to it.
There's another wrinkle to this, and if you take a step back, I just came from the Laboratory Products Association and doing a workshop on life beyond Amazon, right? It's kind of like there are generational transfers, how do you get millennials to want to work, all the human resource stuff, the collaboration things, the use of technology, what's happening with selling stuff online, the price transparency. I mean, these are giant world-changing forces. And it would seem to me, in terms of what I've seen in actually a couple of the NAD panels, the big chains have got the resources to invest in the research and the development and hiring, sponsorship programs for millennials. In terms of the big picture stuff, sort of the direction of the tide instead of size of the wave, does that put the independents, is that a bigger challenge for the independent because they don't have the scale? I mean, how does an independent in that business model deal with these large scale changes?
Yeah, I'll take that. You identified the two of the most important initiatives as we look at this. We talked earlier about national accounts and the need for independents to occasionally collaborate. And I would say, for people development and, digital and their digital businesses, there are, again, it's an important area for independents to deal with some elements of scale challenges through collaboration. So I know both IMARK and AD are focused on this. We have a pretty large digital investment for, we're collectively attributing and building SKUs across all of our different industries. And we have multiple millions of dollars that we're spending a year because individually, for a distributor to do that effectively would be financially challenging. And so, we've negotiated cost savings on B2B platforms. And so, there are things independents need to invest in order to be competitive. Many of those things they can afford on their own. When they hit something that they can't, that's an opportunity for their group or them, individually to collaborate to find those solutions.
Bob, everybody's nodding their head. I mean, John, do you have anything to?
Oh yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think that, if you look at the concept of the groups, AD in my case, their value now has just so transcended what was historically, initially program value, although it's still pretty significant. If you look at the channel today, probably half their net income now comes from their relationship with their buying group from an independent standpoint. But the marketing attention that they then began to focus. So I think, this concept of scale, as we talk about national accounts, Bill references in this digitization, I think there's no question that's a protection opportunity for us if we get together. And you cannot underestimate the strength of strong independent minds. You get them collectively in a room, in a network, and you just cannot believe the power that can create in terms of identifying opportunities, providing strong, in this case, strong feedback back to AD's executive team to help them map the strategy. So I think conceptually that is a very strong value proposition that continues to grow through. So that's a big safety net for us as an independent.
Well, I mean, we're running close to running out of time here. There's a couple, and we could probably spend an hour talking about where that's all going to go. But one of the things I'd really like to just kind of get a high-level picture, if you think about the life cycle of an independent, right? I leave a company, I have a problem with authority, like my friend George, and so I go start a business, or I start a business up, and my financial statements, how much money I have in the bank, and you get it up, you get a couple locations, you're growing, you start to age out. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is, if you talk about the life cycle of an owner, there's that whole period of growth, and then there's somebody, you have to do something because nobody lasts forever. What is the right way for that to work for an independent? I mean, when somebody gets long in the tooth.
Well, I'm not even close to being long in the tooth, so that doesn't apply.
Denial is more than a river in Egypt, Dan.
He was looking at you.
I'm a youngster. For independent electric, I'm really truly blessed. One of the things that we really haven't talked about, part of the strength of being an independent, is the team that you employ. They really become part of your family and your fiber and your fabric. They're people that you want to be in their culture. They want to be in your culture. So for talking to the people in my network groups, we have an advisory board at Independent Electric, and I have an executive team, and we bounce things off each other, and essentially those people are really kind of running the company from day to day. And in my specific instance, my brother is, he would like to tell everyone, 5 years and 4 months younger than you are, and he's the smartest of the two Gray brothers. So for us, we have some longevity in it. We have, Bruce and I both have, between the two of us, 5 children, and they're kids. So, where does it go? Right now, for us, as longevity goes and endurance of cycle you're talking about, is building a really good executive team and then supporting that with an advisory team so that when you have issues, you can drill them down from the top and bring them up from the bottom. And you can execute quicker that way.
So it's building the team.
You got to have the right people. You got to have the team. And everyone's got to be on the same page. And more often than not, you employ people that are like-minded that you are. And that's why we really start these businesses. At the beginning it was because I needed money and it's a job, right? Or some people say because I always wanted to be like my father, which, those are really big shoes to fill. But you do this because you work with people that you like being around. And I wake up every morning and go to work, sometimes late, but I love to do my job. I love to go to the office. I love the engagement with the people that I work with. Every one of them, they all have something they bring to my company. And that tells me that our company has a long-term viability. And that maybe it won't be with me later on. Maybe it'll be my brother, or maybe it'll be his child, or one of his kids. Maybe it'll be my daughter. Who knows? It could be a professional manager, but there is no end-all into it unless, like you talked about earlier, you wanted to cash out. And that's not something we're into, so.
Right. I mean, how about the rest of you? George, I mean, what's your take? You've done this thing for a while.
Yeah, you have to have this mindset that your stewardship in the leadership position is relatively short. And for me, this is my 8th year of leading our company, and if Lord willing, I've got another 8 to 10 before I want to try to retire. But within the first year, we started talking about succession. So by the time my leadership team and I retire, we'll be working on this for 15 years, for developing the next generation of leaders and thinking about that, and thinking about who's going to support them, and then what are the help that they're going to have.
Right.
Underneath them. So I think if you're looking out as a company, if you're preparing yourself, you're in much better shape to pass the company on in whatever format fits you and your company. As an ESOP, it's easy. Whoever does the best job and can take care of the folks the best is going to get the job. Right? But for a family-owned business, there's a lot of other things you have to think about. But it should always come down to who can shepherd that company and steward it for the next generation. But you have to think about it long in advance. And for the folks who haven't, selling your companies, it's a perfectly viable way for you to get the value out of your hard work.
John, last comment before we do a wrap-up
Sure,
here?
I would just, I guess I've been through a number of acquisitions, and certainly the acquisition of State Electric from ART, which was about a 12-year window. I would offer that if you are contemplating succession strategy, allow plenty of time to plan and nurture whatever conclusion you reach, because it is not a quick and easy strategy. Now, it can be, and certainly in a life-changing event, you could be forced into that, but if you want to try and move your organization into a next generation position, whatever that position is that you as an individual would choose, allow yourself plenty of time to do that. And there's plenty of good help and counsel that can help you accomplish that goal. So you don't have to go at it yourself. I think good accountant support and good legal support, you can find a good path forward. But I would challenge it. We were asked this question early on: is when do you start? And you said 15 years is kind of a window. We took 12 years. Clarence and I did, to execute State Electric. So I would say, allow yourself, if you're targeting going to be maybe ready to make a change in 10 years, I would be giving it serious, thought right now.
Well, we've basically run out of time, but what I'd like to do is I'll start with Dan and end with Bill, but in sort of 25 words or less. And if you think about City Slickers, the movie, Jack Palance and Billy Crystal, and the one thing, if there's a message for this audience about the future of independence, what would be the most important thing that you think they ought to take away from this, Dan?
I would tell you that I think the future's bright. The people that I interact with in this industry are very vibrant businesses that continue to grow. They have a strategy to grow their business. They have a strategy for succession. There are a lot of really, really good distributors in here. And I think the one thing you can take away with most people that are independents, we're entrepreneurial, thought-minded individuals. And we do this because we really enjoy it and we like it. and we want to do it. It's something for us to do that we enjoy. And so with that thought, I think that when you look around at the independents, whether you're a small independent like me or you're a really large independent like State Electric, there's a bright, bright future. And there's opportunity everywhere, and the entrepreneurial person is going to look at the opportunity within every situation that happens, whether good or bad, and they're going to find the opportunity to grow their business within it.
Okay, Bob, how about you?
Well, I think probably three of the best examples of looking to the future is State and United and also independent for different reasons. How John's company has evolved, how George, from privately held at one time, now to more to the ESOP model, and Danny from the future, from the family situation. So I would say that the planning that John talked about is critical. And unfortunately, sometimes those that aren't looking at the planning are some of the people that aren't in this room. I know we've started an initiative to try to reach out to those people to say what John said, hey, there are resources. You got to think about, what do you want to, and you got to start now. Do you want to sell? What do you want to do? And I guess the last comment I would make is for independents, I think the best way that they can get strong is by a lot of it by their own wits. But within AD and within IMARK, there are some very brilliant minds. Somebody used that term about that, the independents. And I think if you support the programs that they've put forth, whether it's some of the e-commerce initiatives or the marketing programs, you're going to be of more value to your supplier. And if you're more value to your supplier, they're going to partner stronger with you. And if that happens, you're going to continue to grow your share and increase the value of your company.
John?
Well, I would offer that, I guess my advice would be to nurture and try and drive your culture forward. Embrace change. I learned that from our founder. Embrace change, for sure. And quite honestly, recognize there's a certain time that certain things you got to let go. So don't be afraid to let go of certain things. So I would challenge you, protect and nurture your culture. Don't be resistant to change. Don't be afraid to let go. And remember what Thomas Jefferson said. He said that it just seems the harder I work, the luckier I get.
George?
Well, I think just like in nature and in business, a certain amount of diversity is healthy. And sometimes that diversity just happens naturally, and sometimes it has to be managed. And my thought to the manufacturers is sometimes you need to look at the folks that you want to grow with or you think have an opportunity and help manage that growth. I think you'll be better off for it.
Good. Last words.
Well, thanks, Mike, for inviting all of us in NAD for giving us an opportunity to talk. We have about 50 companies in AD that are distributors that are over 100 years old. We have one that goes back to 1854. It's got the 7th generation working in that business. Can you imagine the pressure on that young man to not screw it up?
Don't screw up. Don't screw up.
Right. They sold blacksmith supplies
Wow.
back when they started. So, independent is another word for entrepreneur. And if you believe in entrepreneurs, then you should believe in independence. And we're grateful for the manufacturers here who support us, and we're grateful for all the relationships that we have. So, thanks.
Super.
Mike.
Please join me in thanking our panelists. Well done, gentlemen.
Dan, always a pleasure.